Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Vanessa and I am an indie author and I publish under the pen name A. Sage. I write YA and I'm slowly transitioning into some new adult and adult material, but it is all fantasy, paranormal, sci-fi, and pretty much anything that's out of this world. So if you're interested in taking a look at my author journey, seeing some of the tips and advice that I have, learning from some of my many mistakes, or if you just want to see what it takes to be an indie author in today's growing book market, then make sure that you stick around for these videos and subscribe to the channel and give me a thumbs up if you do like the video, because it really helps the channel grow and it helps get this information out in front of other viewers. So if you are returning, thank you so much. And if you are not new here, then you will know what Sage Advice is. This is a series that I have started to kind of tell you about all the many mistakes that I made, take you through them one by one, so that in hopes basically that you will not make the same ones on your author journey that I did. And today is another episode of Sage Advice, which I'm very excited about. Today in Sage Advice, we are talking about book launches. Now, there's different types of book launches, and what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for everybody. We all know that pretty much what works for any book in marketing is not going to work for every single book out there. So the most I can do is kind of talk to you about some of the mistakes that I made when I started launching my books, and maybe it'll spark some ideas for you, or if you write in the same genre, you might avoid those mistakes. And it's perfect timing because I actually have a book launching on the 28th. So it's about 2 weeks for now, just under 2 weeks. And it's the seventh book in one of my series. It's the seventh book in the Shadowhurst world. It's called Crystal of Doom. If you have read the series and want to support, then make sure you pre-order the book or get it when it comes out. And if you haven't read the series, I actually have the Witch of Shadows audiobook up for free on this channel. So give that a listen and see if you like it. And I also have a prequel novella that's for free pretty much everywhere. And you can also get it by signing up for my newsletter, and that's called Coven of Deception. And I have that linked below. So with all of that out of the way and my own lunch coming, we are talking about my mistakes when I started launching my books. When I first started writing, I had no idea that you had to put a lot of time and effort into launches and a lot of thought into it. Much like I'm sure everybody else who's starting out, I just thought, okay, I'll just put my book out there, and if people like it, they do, and if they don't, nothing lost, right? But I didn't think that there's so many other people doing the same thing, right? Probably on the same day, in the same hour that I'm launching my book, there's like thousands of others. And so I didn't think that likely nobody would even know about my book unless I promoted it. And so too close to the deadline, I started thinking about promoting my book and telling people about it. And so my main mistake when I started was not planning far enough in advance. As a result, I didn't have the right promotions in place. I didn't do enough research to know what works to launch in my genre. And I didn't have my back matter properly set up. All in all, what that accounted for was very weak launches. Not just weak launches, but confused launches, because I was mimicking and imitating what I saw that people do. I did Facebook Lives, even though nobody even knew who I was. I did giveaways, even though I didn't have a lot of followers. Again, though I was a new author. I tried to contact like influencers, again, completely new. Why would they want to work with me? I don't even think I contacted them properly. So I did all this stuff that I really shouldn't have done. And the reason I did it so poorly is because I didn't take time, I didn't research, and I didn't think about what my launch would look like and what a successful launch for me was. As a new author, for me, a successful launch, personally, my successful launch should have just been trying to get this book into as many hands as possible, get as many eyes on it as I could. It shouldn't have been about sales, even though it's hard to say that now, because you always think that perhaps that you want more and more sales, right? But it should not have been about sales. It should have been about recognition and getting my name out there and getting people to read the first book. My first launch of my book, well, it shouldn't have been free, of course, although it could have been. It should have been promoted as though it was very much free. So I didn't do that. And not a lot of people read it. Not a lot of people knew about it. It wasn't until book 2 or 3 in that series that people kind of got to know me a bit better and started picking up the books. But that was a huge loss in my perspective on what I should have done. So some of the tips I have for launches, if you're launching a book, is make sure that you brainstorm. I mean, really take your time, sit down, get a notebook, get like a book launch notebook going, post-it notes, whatever you need to do it on your phone, on your laptop, whatever, but sit down and brainstorm different ideas. When you see someone doing something, just jot it down. It doesn't mean you have to do it, but get it out there, see what other people are doing, and figure out later on if it will work for you. Just kind of brainstorm a plan of sorts and start doing it way ahead of time. Then what you want to do really is research. So look at your list of brainstorm, like brain dump idea basically for your launch, and research if the ideas that you had seen out there, the stuff you wrote down, if it's relevant to your book, your genre, and kind of figure out if it's even something you want to do. Now for me, when I first started out, I was not good, and I'm still, I don't think the best, but learning at being in front of camera, in front of people. And so doing a Facebook Live was a very awkward thing for me to do. And I cringe about it now, thinking about it, but I still did it anyways. And I don't think it was a great look. It probably would have gone over much better if I was more comfortable on camera, talking to people, to strangers that I haven't met before online and all of that. And so try to research not just what works for your genre, but what's going to work for you and who you are as a person, as an author, and what's going to work for your book. The next thing you really want to think about is setting up a budget. While it is possible to launch a book by spending zero money up front, realistically, it's becoming less and less possible. And I don't mean to be a downer about this, but you do need to invest a little bit of money to get a book launched. For starters, you'll probably need, if you're doing paper books, you'll need to check them to make sure everything's right. So you have to pay for those to come in so you can check them. You probably want to get maybe not a full editor. You could get away with beta readers because editors can be expensive, but you do want to think about a proofreader. Or at least somebody else. You can get really budget friendly. Proofreaders are there who will proofread your book at 0.001 per word, right? Which ends up being very, very cheap. But you should try to get as many spelling errors and grammar errors out of your book as possible, which could sink into your budget. If you're going to be working with influencers, if it's on, say, Instagram, for example, they'll likely want a physical copy of the book, so you have to pay for shipping and for the actual books to send it to them. If you're doing blog tours, those cost money as well. If you're not going to pay for blog tours and you're going to try to set up blog tours yourself, you need to start thinking of that about 8 months ahead of time, if not earlier, if not a year, because they get very booked up, and you want to allow enough time for yourself that you can contact people. First, make a list of everybody you want to contact, then contact them, wait for them to respond. It takes a very long time. If you are lazy like me and don't want to spend that time, then you are likely going to just pay for a blog tour. So that goes into the budget as well. Promotional images. If you're great at setting up your own promotional images, that's fantastic. You have skills in Photoshop, design, whatever, then that's not going to cost you anything really. It will cost you to actually buy stock images. That's, I think, a completely side advice here, but if you're using any images from online to promote your books, make sure that they are stock images that you have purchased. You can get into some serious legal ramifications if you pull images off Google, on Pinterest, and things like that without getting written permission, not just from the person who took the image or did the artwork or whatever it is you're using, but from the model to get a release. If there's architecture in the picture, you'll need to get an architecture release from the city in which it was taken. So much easier to just buy a stock photo, but that goes into your budget as well. If you're going to use, I guess you can use Canva, and that you can get free Canva for promo images. But if you're going to be using something like BookBrush, that's a subscription that you pay for. So there's a lot of costs that kind of go into launches. Swag is another one. Are you doing small swag, bookmarks, things like that? Another thing that you might not think about that goes into budget, but if you are doing bookmarks, postcards, t-shirts, and things like that, and you're using any kind of image, like say your book cover on it, you will need to get extended license and pay for that to use the images that were used in your book cover, unless it was drawn by the artist, in which case you'll need to ask your illustrator or your artist for the extended license to use it for paid marketing, promotional materials. So yeah, budget. Definitely give yourself time. Going back to what I didn't give myself, now I do obviously, but I didn't, man. Give yourself time to think of all this stuff, right? And figure out how you can save yourself money, because if you leave it to the last minute, you might be stuck with what you can get, and that usually is more pricey. So another thing you might want to do is you want to make sure that your book is set up perfectly, that your back matter and your links are working, and that all your social media, website, and online presence is kind of ready to sustain the launch. The same goes for Goodreads and BookBob. So you just want to make sure that you've got your, T's crossed and I's dotted, check all your links, just make sure that your book is ready to go, that you've claimed it on Goodreads and BookBob, that your website is looking good, that your links on your website are working to direct people to where they need to go, that you have your social media links all good for the book, that you have like a pre-order if you have one, that the links are there. So just make sure that all of that is in place. If you have a newsletter, start utilizing it early. Start telling people on your newsletter and all your readers that you already have collected about the book that's coming out, and keep telling them. People need to be told about 7 times before they actually make the decision to get something. So, don't do it every single day. You want to start earlier, kind of give teasers, show the book cover release, things like that. So it's not always get the book. You just want to kind of slowly drip that the book is coming. If you don't have a newsletter, start one as soon as possible. That is, I know a lot of people recommend it, and it couldn't be more true. You really want to start your newsletter ASAP, before your book even comes out, because at the end of the day, all the social media that you have, while it's great, that is not an audience that you own. If Facebook decides tomorrow, or Instagram or TikTok or whatever, that they don't like your account and they close you down, you lose every single one of those readers and those eyeballs on your books. Your newsletter, you control. So you have emails, you have ways to contact people, and it's good to have as not just your primary way of contacting your readers, but as a backup as well. So just think of it as a hard drive that you're saving this information to. You also want to begin promoting on social media earlier than you think you need to, and that goes back to what we said about newsletters as well. This is especially important for first books in a series. As you get further on, you'll see I have the 7th book coming out. I start promoting it maybe 3 to 4 weeks before, but I start doing teases as I'm writing. So there's always kind of once a week, there's a tease from the book. But the actual promotion where I'm it's coming on this date and doing graphics and all of that, I start about a month before, a month and a half before, because it's book 7 in a series. So really nobody's starting from that book. I would rather take my budget putting towards advertising the first book in that series for paid advertising, and then do social media for the 7th book kind of a bit slower. And most of my books later in the series, and your books probably, will be sold via your newsletter and the readers you already have. So that's why a newsletter is very important. If you're going to work with influencers or are planning to run paid ads, you need to book them months ahead of time. This goes specifically for even things like Bargain Booksy, Free Booksy, Fussy Librarian, e-reader News Today, all of those. They get booked up pretty fast. You could get lucky and get them last minute, but it's better to book them ahead of time. Also, if you are in Kindle Unlimited with your book, and say you want to launch your book for free, make sure you book that ahead of time as well. You also want to have your ARC readers organized, and you want to alert them ahead of time with dates on when they can expect the book, and when you expect their reviews to get posted. And don't forget to follow up. People forget, life gets in the way, and just following up in general is a good way to see which ones of your ARC readers are actually participating and reading and reviewing, and which ones aren't. And it's a good way to kind of hedge and clean the list as you go along. On your lunch day, oh my God, I'm hungry. On your lunch day, oh God, I want lunch. Anyways, on your lunch day, go big. Like, don't be afraid to celebrate, it's a big deal. You wrote a book. I know when I first started, I felt uncomfortable telling people about it. I also didn't know how people would react, to be like, oh, you wrote a book. I didn't know you even were a writer. But don't be afraid. Just go big, shout it from the rooftops, tell everybody. That's what a launch day is, right? Like, if you want to have a launch party, on Facebook, on Instagram Live, like if you want to, on TikTok, whatever you want to do it, on all of them all together at the same time, right? Go wild, like just have it, celebrate, invite people to it, and just have fun, and make sure that you are relaxed. Don't check your sales every 2 minutes, especially on your first book. You will drive yourself crazy. You will be better off to just kind of step away, enjoy the day, enjoy that you wrote a book. It's huge. You wrote a book, and that your book is out there and people are reading it. And just take your time with that, and maybe check your sales a couple times in the day. Or what I do is I usually just enjoy the full day, and then I will check sales the next day. It's hard to step away, I know, but it makes the launch day more celebratory. And so I think that's a really good kind of thing to do for yourself. Just enjoy it. So that's what I have for you guys for launch days today. We can do another more detailed, I think I might do it in the future, probably after the launch of Crystal of Doom. We'll do a more detailed kind of step-by-step to book launches, and I will work on like a checklist template for the library, the resource library, for us to have that for that day as well. So maybe next month, that's what we'll do. I'll have to make a note for it. If you haven't seen the resource library yet, I do have some free resources that I work on updating as much as I can. And those are linked right below in the description. So sign up. All you have to do is sign up with your email, and then you get a password to the library with like all the resources that are on there right now. I did a video kind of to show you what resources are on there at the time, so I'll have that probably somewhere on the screen or on the bottom at some point, depending on how I end up editing this. So with that said, thank you again, as always, for watching, for hanging out with me. I appreciate every single one of you, and I'm so happy to hear when any advice I had helped you out. If you have any questions, if there's any videos or any topics that you want to hear me talk about, make sure that you comment below and let me know. And I take note of all of those, and I try to kind of do the videos as I go along. But if there's any questions that I have that might not require, like that you have, that might not require a full video, then I'm always around to answer those questions. So with that said, I hope you guys stay magical, and I will talk to you all next week. Bye.